Hey everyone. Hi. Okay, let's get into things. I apologize for not having a video for you last week, but I had family in town and it just was not going to happen. But I do have a video for you this week, and I'm going to try to keep these pretty short. Because I'm pretty sure you don't want to just stare at my face and listen to me for, hours on end. Okay, so first things first, I have graded most of the assignments. I think I still have your black men as criminals and as victims reading response or reading analysis still to grade, but I will have that graded by the end of the weekend. The discussion forums, before I get into my commentary about those, I was going through reading your discussion forums and then grading them. So if you see a grade for your week 6 discussion forum and it's like a 5 or 8 or something, or well, you can't really have a 3, can you? But if you have some low grade, it's not that that's your final grade. I will have like the final grade ready for you once I've graded all of them. It's just, I figured, why would I read your responses twice? I'm already reading them. I'm just going to grade them as I read. So don't freak out about week 6. I'm not finished grading them because you're not finished doing them. So, but I was just grading as I was going along. The other thing about the discussion forums is we really need to bring something new to the table when we're responding to one another. I'm seeing a lot of agreement, a lot of kumbaya, and a lot of lovey-dovey stuff, and it's really nice to be very encouraging. And I do prefer that over people being aggressive online, because I have had that experience. And it's not that I want you to be aggressive with one another. It's just... have you ever had a conversation with someone and, they just agree with everything you say, or more than just agreeing with what is being said, somebody who just summarizes what you just said? I really want us to get away from that, especially, things like, when you said this, I agreed with that. Okay, yes, that's nice, but we need to, bring something new to the table. So I think the easiest way to do this is sometimes, again, find a person you don't agree with, which that's also really hard in this class because there tends to be a lot of the same kind of opinions. Like you all agree on, you really do all agree on a lot of things. But I think the best way to go about doing this is play devil's advocate. And you can even put that in there, because I know sometimes we're like, I don't want people to think that I really think like this. You could just say, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Have you ever thought about this? Because the other danger with agreeing with everything that a person says, it doesn't really sharpen your argument. It doesn't really sharpen critical thinking skills. And that's something I really want us to get into. And of course, I can come up with questions for you, but this is a 300 level class. And I think that you all can handle that as well, that you can question one another and come up with, just better things than I agree and summarizing what a person feels. So now that I have said that, I am going to be looking out for that with your grades and how I rate your post. So again, the I agrees, be careful with that. If you agree, bring something new to the table, question, shake it up. The other thing too that I wanted to say, the Wednesday deadline for getting your first post in. I know it can be a little rough, but I really encourage us to get those posts in by Wednesday, like 11:59 p.m. I understand, possibly Thursday, right? But when we start getting into you're posting everything Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I will start deducting points for that, because sometimes I've noticed that people will post things on, Sunday at 10 o'clock at night, and you're asking questions that aren't ever going to get responded to. So again, these discussion forums are to replicate in class discussion, and you do have a lot of flexibility as far as freedom of time with these online classes. So I just encourage you to look at your schedule and to figure out when you can interact, because interaction is so huge. It's very important. So keep that in mind. And last announcement before I get into feedback about things, I apologize for the format of the discussion forum. It's supposed to be like the last 2 that we've had, but as you notice, like all of you can make your own, I don't know what this is, your own post that people have to respond to you. It's not all in one, so everybody can see everything. And before I noticed it, too many of you have posted for me to change it. So I'm sorry. That was not, those, our discussion forums won't look like that. So, because I know it's really hard to click on somebody's thing and then respond to them. It's nice to be able to see what everybody's saying all at one time. It's nice for me too, because it takes a long time to go through them. Oh, one more last thing. So I just discovered that I can do these things called cards on YouTube, which is like polls. So I'm wanting these videos to be, you know, like wonderful for you. I mean, it takes a lot of time to put them together. I know it doesn't seem like it, but like I said, I take like a ton of notes and I'm writing things down and I'm going through things. So I don't want this to be a waste of time for you, and I don't want it to be a waste of time for me. And I am noticing that like there are far less views on these videos. So I don't know if, not that I don't know, I know people aren't watching them. And again, so I'm thinking of a way to make it like maybe more exciting or more interactive. I'm going to put these cards up here, and I keep saying cards, but there should be like a little circle with like an eye. Can you see that? Ah, there we go. With like an eye, like either on this side or on this side. And I'm going to ask a question and you can click on it and answer the question. Exciting? No? Yes? Okay, well, I'm trying, yes. And if anybody has any suggestions for what you would like to see, or if you don't want me to, well, I'm going to give your discussion board feedback on here. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to deal with that. But if there's something else you want, like if you want a short lecture, you want an appearance by my dog that's barking, I don't know, whatever you want, let me know, because I want these to be good for you. Okay, so getting into the discussion forums, my feedback to you. So it was interesting reading everybody's the discussions that I saw about gentrification, and just a couple of people that you posted out to me. Hiroko, which you're like becoming like a celebrity on here, Hiroko. I know I've seen people saying like, I love reading your posts because you've had so much experience and you've been so many places around the world, and so I love reading your experiences as well. Not that I don't love reading everyone else's. Everybody's equal, but you know, I'm just saying. So you talked about Singapore's ethnic integration policy, and I think you brought that up in the last discussion forum as well. And then the picture you attached of what the subsidized housing looks like. It's gorgeous. Give me some of that subsidized housing. I'll take it. You know, like our government housing in America looks nothing like the one in Singapore, and it looks like nothing most people want to live in. So it's interesting, right, how you can be different around the world. And then Yomira and Saul, you had a great conversation about your experiences with gentrification, and Barrio Logan is one of those places in our own city that's definitely going through this gentrification process. So that was really interesting. Okay, at the end of the day, oh, one last one. David Taylor had a really unique perspective on gentrification, and this idea that like gentrification is actually good for, in the case of Brooklyn, right? Spike Lee, who I love, just FYI. But Spike Lee was talking about, you know, like African Americans in Brooklyn and how they're being displaced from Brooklyn. But David, your position on this was pretty unique, saying that it was actually good for African Americans who have the money to stay and that it will build well for them. Just some like, you know, I was going to say critique. I guess that's where it's at. It kind of reminds me of the criticism that Du Bois got for his idea of the talented 10th. Although Du Bois was saying that the talented 10th was going to like open up the doorway for other African Americans. How can this be seen with gentrification? How would allowing a small number of African Americans who were wealthy enough to stay in their neighborhood open the doors for other African Americans? Because once those houses are bought by, you know, wealthier white people or other, you know, groups of people, how are African Americans supposed to come back? How does this build wealth for the African American community as a whole? Is that something that African Americans should be concerned about? It seems like, you know, that's kind of the other argument, is that wealthy African Americans don't care about poor African Americans, and that can cause a lot of, you know, division. And we can say the same thing about other races, not just African Americans. You could say the same thing about the Latino community, about the Asian community. You look at like typically or generally Chinese, Japanese, some Southeast Asian cultures tend to make a lot more money than Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian cultures. So should there be some concern because of the racial background? But then we can get into like, ethnicity is way different. The languages are different. The cultures are different. But it's just something that I hear a lot when it comes to like the African American community. Like there needs to be some sense of unity. And would that bring further division? I hear the same thing about in like the Chicano community as well. So just something for you all to think about if you want to talk about that. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. And check out David Taylor's post as well. Okay, so it sounds like everyone really likes the idea of desegregating a community, but you don't like the idea of gentrification. Tate, you brought up in your post, in order for desegregation to work, there must be mutual relationship where all races are truly equal in the community. And I think that that's a really important point. It's interesting that we like the idea of desegregation, but we don't like the idea of gentrification. But yet gentrification, one of the byproducts is that it desegregates a community. So how can we have desegregation without gentrification? I guess is kind of what I'm asking, right? This also reminds me of Chicago, what happened in Chicago. There were housing projects that were torn down. And, okay, so there were housing projects that were torn down. People were displaced from them. And then they rebuilt this housing community where half of the residents are low-income residents who are getting like Section 8 housing, subsidized housing, and then the other half are residents who are buying their apartment. So you have like middle to upper middle class people living in the same space as Section 8 residents. Because the idea is that, like, again, if you desegregate a community, that it would bring some positive effects. But you know what is so interesting is that there's segregation even within that community. Most of the homeowners live in one section of the community, and most of the Section 8 tenants live in another section of the community, so they don't really interact with one another. And so there's still segregation even in a desegregated community. What do you think about that? How could we create an area where it is desegregated, but there's still respect for culture, and there's still respect for class, and there's not this aspect of gentrification involved? Moving on to the theories. Great job explaining the motivation behind middle and upper class crimes. I think a lot of you talked about the fact that, like, emotions, anger, depression, what were some other things that you said were motivations behind middle class crimes? I can't think of anything right now, but you gave some good motivations. Can you give me some examples then of crimes that are committed out behind those emotions? And the other thing I wanted to say, I have like 2 pages of notes and they're out of order. I'm sorry. Strain theory, right? I think that we all understand the idea of strain and the different strains that people go through. What are some solutions to alleviate strain? And then if strain is different for middle class, working class, what would be some solutions to alleviate working class strain, and what would be some solutions to alleviate middle class strain? Okay, so what else? I saw a lot talking about the difference between, like, the crimes that lower class people commit and upper class people commit, right? And there was this discussion that lower class people tend to commit more violent crimes, and that upper class people commit white collar crimes. And I think that it's interesting, sometimes we have this perception that white collar crime is not as harmful as street crime. So I have a question for you, and I'm going to try to put this in a card. one of these corners will have, maybe it's even down here. I don't know. In a card, in a poll. Okay, so here's the question. Which do you think is more harmful to our society? White collar crime or street crime? So answer. Okay, now I have an analogy for you. Choose one or the other. And maybe this will be a second card. Would you rather... That's my dog. Would you rather get punched in the face one time, square in the middle of your face, one time, or would you rather have an anonymous company take $40 out of your account every month for no reason, for no purpose? You'll never know what the company is. You'll never know why they're taking that money out of your account, but for the rest of your life, $40 out of your account every single month. Or would you rather get punched in the face? I'll let you decide. So it's interesting. Most people would choose like punch in the face, like one time, just punch me in the face. Let's get it over with. I won't have to deal with it. That's the same kind of effect that white collar crime and street crime have. Street crime, yes, it's hurtful, it's violent, it's visible, it's aggressive, but it is not as damaging as white collar crime is. Street crime, even though we always say, you know, anyone can be a victim of street crime, that's not true. Not anyone can be a victim of street crime. Street crime has a definite pattern to it. I think this might have been touched on in the Black Men as Criminals and as Victims, but if you are, you know, there are patterns in predictors like race, class, gender, right? Males are more likely to be involved in street crime and be victims of street crime. Lower class are more likely to be victims of street crime, and people of color are more likely to be victims of street crime. So if you're not in that category, your likelihood of being involved in, you know, street violence, it's like slim to none. It's probably never going to happen to you. Or the odds are very low that it will happen to you. Now, don't take this as it will never happen. I'm just saying the odds of it happening to you are very slight. On the other hand, white collar crime affects all of us. Everyone's been a victim of white collar crime at some point in their life. So it's interesting that because we tend to see street crime more focused on in the media, we think that it's far worse than white collar crime. But white collar crime is financially damaging to us as a society, and it impacts far more people than street crime does. So that's interesting. And then another card that I was going to put up here, which of Merton's adaptations do you identify with the most besides conformity? Because I know everybody's going to say like conformity, but I might even put that as an option. Conformity, innovation, retreatism, ritualism, or rebel. Is it rebelism? I always just say rebel. I'm just interested in knowing. So hopefully you like the card and the poll aspect. I think that that's all I have to share with you because it's already 18 minutes into the video and I'm afraid you're not going to watch the whole thing. If you did watch the whole thing, like give me a shout out and say like, I watched the whole thing in your next post. Yes, I just want to know. All right. I will talk to you soon. Thanks.